Hello? Is this thing on? Oh, hey guys, has it really been a year since I've taken delivery of the long-term Porsche? Time really flies, and to be honest, I actually haven't driven this car as much as I'd like to. I know you guys have been asking me to do a channel update, to do an update on the garage, because remember, we've got this and a Model 3 Performance in the long-term fleet, and that's coming. Let me first focus on the Porsche, but let me first start off by saying I have the big announcement. I am selling the Cayman, and simply because I just don't have use for this car for the remaining 2 years of the lease, because I've only put 4,000 miles on it. Between all of the press trips that I take, between all the press cars that I've got to drive, this thing's just quickly becoming an expensive garage ornament. So if you're actually interested in purchasing this exact car in the video, be sure to click on the link in the description below where I've got it listed on Swapalease. But this video is not going to be about me trying to sell the long-term Cayman. Instead, I'm going to talk about what it's like to own this thing, all the pluses, all the minuses, talk about some of the reasons why I've decided to sell it, and just in general, go over what it's like to own a Porsche if you guys have ever actually been interested in trying to purchase one of these vehicles. So stay tuned for all that. So to refresh your memory, I actually took delivery of the Cayman GTS in June of 2018, exactly a year ago. And at the time, I actually just bought this car straight off the dealership showroom. It was basically the top-end Cayman that you could buy at the time. The GTS, as you guys know, sits above the S because it has 15 more horsepower. It basically gives you all the performance goodies thrown in for more money, but you actually pay less. Porsche gives you a discount by, upgrading the trim level. Now, since then, Porsche has introduced a Cayman T, which is essentially a sport version of the base motor with the 2-liter flat 4. And then now they just announced the Cayman GT4 and Boxster Spider, which sits above the GTS because they have a flat 6, a naturally aspirated flat 6, only comes with a 6-speed manual. And before you're thinking, I'm selling this because I want the Cayman GT4, no, I'm gonna go over some of the other reasons why I'm getting rid of this car and what I think I should actually replace it with. Now, this particular color that I bought it in is the standard white exterior. It looks really good with the black exterior accents of the GTS model, but if you guys are OCD like myself about keeping your car clean, I definitely wouldn't recommend a white exterior color, because even though it looks really good on camera here, this color actually shows dirt very well. And if you guys are looking to hide the dirt, I'd recommend going for a silver or for a gray exterior color. Now, to address how I actually keep this thing clean, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Shine Armour. Now, I've been working with Shine Armour for almost a year now, and they've always sent me this product called Fortify Quick Coat. What essentially it is a beefed up spray detailer, a quick detailer. Now, quick detailers usually are great for polishing your car in between washes, but Shine Armour says you don't actually need to use water to clean this thing unless your car is completely caked in mud. It's fortified with a ceramic coating. Ceramic coating is that expensive $1,000 process that a dealer charges you to kind of protect the exterior. But because this quick coat actually has the ceramic coating in it, essentially what that means, this particular color, if you look around the wheel wells and whatnot, it has some black soot from the road. If I kind of just spray the area over here and just kind of gently wipe it away, Shine Armour says it will not scratch the paint because it's fortified with that ceramic coating, and it also, unlike a regular spray detailer, will help to keep the vehicle clean for a longer period of time so you don't actually have to wash it. But if you look at the rag, look at that black marks there. And again, it doesn't look that dirty, but because this stuff works really well, you kind of wipe it away and you can see it looks a lot more white. This car, if you let it get dirty for too long, essentially changes color to more of a grayish silver color because it gets covered in black soot, especially when you look at the rear area. So if you guys are interested in picking up a bottle of the Fortify Quick Coat, be sure to visit the link in the description below. Use the code name Redline. Shine Armour will even throw in a buy one, get one free bottle when you guys use that promotion. So how's the car actually held up after a year of ownership? Well, I only have 4,000 miles on the car. I've really only taken it on a couple of longer road trips, and I didn't get any kind of clear bra on the car because it was a lease when I bought it. But essentially, the front end has held up very nicely. I mean, there are a couple of smaller rock chips here and there. Remember, this is a very low car. The thing that surprised me the most about this thing, it actually has a completely open area right here. There's no any grill covers here to protect the radiator or anything from hitting any rocks and whatnot, so you kind of have to be a little bit more careful. This is definitely a low car, and you can scrape it if your driveway is a little bit steep, so I recommend taking it much more slowly, taking it at an angle. It's not quite as low as a car like a McLaren, but you will definitely notice the lowness. Now, one option that my tester didn't have because the dealer didn't specify it are the full Porsche LED headlights. These are just the standard bi-xenon headlights. They do include an LED daytime running light, which is kind of just a little simple LED to the side of the headlight. It's an LED low and high beam. You can see here you get an LED turn signal, and then when you have the headlights on, the light comes on here, but this is not actually the LED running light. If you guys upgrade to the LED headlights, you'll have the 4-point LEDs, and the headlights will also swivel. I highly recommend paying the $1,500 option because when I drove a Porsche with the LED headlights, I found that the headlights were so much brighter at night. They reached a much farther distance, and the fact that they swivel, it's just a worthy upgrade for $1,500. Honestly, Porsche should really make it standard, especially at this price point. You also notice the European plate at the front of my car. Because this car is registered in Delaware, they don't require a front plate in that state, and the dealer already had drilled it for Virginia. So to cover up the drill holes, I essentially put this European plate that I customized and added the Redline logo, and I thought it really did a good job of breaking up the front end. So from the side angle of the Cayman, this is actually my favorite part of the vehicle because it can look a little bit too conservative from the front of the car especially, but from the sides you can really see Porsche kind of exudes an exotic feel to it, even though it is a little bit more understated than some of the competition. The GTS trim comes with these black finished 20-inch wheels. They're painted a satin black, so they're kind of like a matte finish for the wheels. These are basically the Carrera S wheels that have been painted black. I actually really love the wheels with this white combination, but if you guys also hate cleaning, don't get the black wheels because look at these wheels. They get covered in brake dust, and you'd think for a black wheel they would hide dirt, but they actually don't. Instead, they get pretty dirty, and you'll notice when they're dirty. The red brake calipers that stick out, that's standard on the GTS trim. They're also drilled rotors. For $8,500, you can basically specify the Porsche carbon ceramics, which if you guys don't plan to track the car regularly, I don't recommend it. They do add the yellow calipers, which is nice. The GTS also gives you the subtle GTS badge at the lower part of the door. You can paint those, or this air intake here for the engine, exterior color or a gloss black if you'd like. This is the standard finish. If you guys are looking for a sunroof, sorry, it's not available on the Cayman. Get a Boxster or get a 911 if you guys are looking for a sunroof. The tires of the vehicle, this actually came with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. These are definitely the best performance tire you can buy. You know, in 4,000 miles, they essentially still look new to me, which is good because these tires are really only designed to last about 15,000 miles. But they look like they at least have enough wear to last another 15 to 20,000 miles, depending on how hard you guys actually drive this thing. At the rear, you can see the Cayman has the conservative look of the front. It definitely looks more aggressive if you have that deployable wing spoiler popped up, which I actually have it set to do so in my individual setting, which I'll talk about on the interior. If you have this spoiler deployed, it does kind of get in the way when you're trying to access the rear hatch area. You can see the black finished LED taillights are going to be standard on the GTS. You have this kind of matte black finish at the lower part of the rear fascia, and then you get the sport exhaust as standard equipment on the GTS, which is typically a $3,000 option. Now, of course, the engine is back here because it's a mid-engine car. It's got 365 horsepower. It's a 2.5 liter flat four. Now, I'm going to talk about my final thoughts on the engine because the controversy, of course, with this car is that Porsche replaced the 6-cylinder with a flat four, and now they've gone back to a flat 6 in the GT4 model. Now, to refresh your memory, let me let you guys hear what the engine sounds like really quick when it's starting up and when it's on full boil. And if you guys have owned a flat 6-cylinder Porsche before, that is definitely not what you're expecting, which I'll talk about later on in the video. Now, opening up the rear hatch area, you can basically just have the key on you, just like the front part. If you have the key on you, because I have the Porsche Entry and Drive, just kind of put your hand over here in this general area and it'll open up the rear cargo area. Now, this is technically rated at around 5.5 cubic feet of storage. Now, the engine is living underneath this compartment right here, this hatch, which you cannot access. The only thing you can do is essentially open up this to access your oil over there, or your oil is over here, so you can add oil, and then over here is the washer fluid or coolant fluid. So if you guys are looking to add coolant fluid, it's on this end, the oil is on the other end, washer fluid is at the front of the vehicle. And then there is a still good amount of trunk space back here, but I found myself putting bigger things in the front area because this isn't very deep, it's a little bit shallow. But if you have to put a longer item, you can kind of stack it along the deeper area here and then on top of the engine. So in case you guys forgot, the Cayman is a mid-engine car. So underneath the front here, there's no actual engine. Instead, you get the bigger trunk between the front and the rear trunks. Porsche says this is around like 7 cubic feet of space. I actually use the front trunk more because it is so deep. I mean, look at this trunk. I'm 5'7". I could almost essentially fit in here. I mean, I couldn't actually close it, but the fact that it's this deep definitely made this car possible if you want to take it to runs to Costco or you need to convince your significant other that this is a practical sports car. Oh, Jesus, I'm getting too old for this. So moving on to the inside of the Cayman GTS, you can see obviously the inside still smells very new in here because it only has 4,000 miles. And what you're looking at essentially is the base interior options. This is not the upgraded or the partial leather interior or the full leather interior. That'll cost you up to $5,000 if you guys want the full leather. And unfortunately, your color choices when you guys stick to the base interior is black or the agate gray, which honestly, I hate both of them. This black interior constantly reminds me that I should have ordered this car specifically to get the red interior, the Bordeaux red that I've always wanted, especially with this white exterior. But again, if you guys prefer a more simple tone, the black will definitely do. And it's still a very high quality interior, despite the fact that this is Porsche's entry-level sports car. Now, when you shut the door, it sounds very solid. That's exactly how I would rate the door slam, which it should because this car costs $95,000 as tested that I actually bought for this thing. Now, looking at the rest of the cabin, I've already gone over this interior pretty thoroughly in my full review. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure you guys, check out that video. But the seats, you can see these are the 18-way power seats. They're really comfortable, really supportive. On a 2-hour road trip that I took it in, I didn't feel any fatigue whatsoever. And in the corners, they'll hold you in place really well because I have the Porsche entry and drive, which by the way, the key fob of this vehicle, it looks like a little car. The buttons, I will say, the chrome around this area is starting to peel off. So I would recommend getting one of those leather key covers that Porsche offers for like $1,000. I'm just kidding. It's probably like $200, which is still honestly a ripoff. So because of this, or because I have the Porsche entry and drive, just put your foot on the brake. And I can just turn this little nozzle over here, this little pacifier stick thingy here, and it'll start the car up. Now, it starts up default in its normal setting. When you guys go over to the sport mode, you can hear the engine gets significantly louder. And honestly, when I'm sitting here revving it, I think the engine sounds fantastic. But again, we'll talk about that when we go out into the drive of this vehicle. But let me show you guys the other things with the interior. Everything pretty much here has held up extremely well. This one here, doesn't have the leather on the dashboard, which I kind of wish it did, but it has, soft touch materials basically everywhere. Even on this lower part of the door panel, it's soft touch. On this upper portion here, you have stitched leather, one touch automatic for the windows. If you guys get the 18-way seats, you'll also get 2-person memory, and you also get a power tilt telescoping steering column, which is linked to the 2-person memory. So if you don't get that, you're gonna lose that feature. Mine also has the Premium Plus package that basically for $3,000 rolls in the Porsche entry drive, the heated and cooled seats, the dual zone climate control, the light design package, so it has the LED lighting in here, the auto dimming, mirrors. So I recommend adding that. That's a specific US option for this car. I also have the multifunction heated steering wheel, so you'll have the controls here for the cruise control, for the audio controls for your phone. You can control this little screen over here in the instrument panel. I think this interior, even though it is refreshingly simple, is definitely looking dated when you look at the new 911 with its larger widescreen display. This 7-inch display that's part of the Porsche Connect head unit, while it definitely has been updated when they refreshed this car for 2017, it definitely is too small for me. I would have preferred a much larger screen. I'm really starting to appreciate the tech and the bigger screens in cars. I also hate how Porsche doesn't make Apple CarPlay as standard. You still have to pay $300 extra in a Cayman for Apple CarPlay. That's right, if you want to buy this car, which is close to $100,000, CarPlay is still extra, so damn you the Germans for making you pay extra for all that. The navigation system isn't exactly what I would say Audi's Google Earth display. It's definitely not bad. but I found that the GPS in this car, I never used it very often because it was very slow, it was very laggy. It tended to get me lost at times. Most of the times I would just use my phone, which would have been nice if this car had Apple CarPlay. There's only one USB in this car. It's in the glove compartment, and that's also extremely frustrating. There's a lot of buttons over here. The dual clutch, you know, is the PDK. It has this, you know, traditional shifter. I've got front and rear parking sensors and whatnot. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you get a backup camera with trajectory, you know, with the parking sensors and whatnot. There's no 360 camera. The tech in here definitely needs work, but you didn't buy a Porsche for the tech. I do love the cooled seats in this car, which are optional. You get that as part of the premium package. I think in a car like this, it's definitely necessary to spec in the cooled seats. Lots of empty buttons here, but you can basically adjust the suspension, the stability control, the exhaust system, the wing, turn off the auto start stop. So there's a lot in here, and it's fairly easy to understand. It's just when you start looking at some of the competition, Porsche is definitely getting a little bit behind in times with the interior. But enough about the actual interior. Let's go for a drive. Let me talk about why I'm selling the Cayman, if this car is still very fun to drive, and if I regret actually purchasing this thing, and if I was going to do it all over again, what would I change? So I will admit, a part of me is definitely going to be sad when I do get rid of this car, because honestly, the few times that I have driven, I mean, it has 4,098 miles on it in exactly a year. I love this thing. It is such very much a pure sports car when you drive it. I mean, a mid-engine layout is basically the best layout for a sports car, and it just takes just setting down the road or just moving a few feet in a Cayman to realize that. Now, the one thing about a Porsche in general is it is an everyday kind of sports car. I mean, this is a very shitty, bumpy road that I constantly drive on and I test suspensions out on. And this is the Cayman in its comfort setting right now because it's got, you know, an active suspension. And honestly, even with these very skinny, low-profile 35 series tires on 20-inch wheels, I go over this, you know, the bumpy area here, and my back's not braking. The car just kind of glides over it. Now, again, this is not like Camry or, you know, Lexus smooth, but for a sports car, it actually is not bad. Everybody that I put in this thing, they first are surprised at how low it is, but then when I start driving it, they're like, wow, this is very comfortable. I could actually easily daily drive this thing. And it's kind of the beauty with the Cayman. Now, the flat 4-cylinder engine, I'm going to mostly talk about that because, you know, I've had a year to get used to this engine, and there are times where I like the engine and there are times where I don't. When I first started up and listened to the engine, you know, with it in, you know, in sport mode, I think it sounds pretty good, but when it's in comfort mode right now and the transmission in its normal setting, it's a little bit kind of Subaru Boxer 4 growly. And also when you come to a stop, it's got start-stop, which I hate the start-stop in this car because when you lift off the brake, it definitely has a noticeable lag, and I think Porsche shouldn't have a lag. So most of the times, I just would put it into my individual mode or my Sport Plus. Now, the one thing about the Cayman in general, the launch control in Porsches with the PDK is just mind-boggling. No other car manufacturer revs the engine as high as this vehicle. Now, Matt Moran Motoring did a video on my Cayman while he tried to do the launch control, but it only sounded like it revved up to about 3,000. I told him he did it wrong, and he didn't actually get a chance to try it out. He'll have to do it at a later date. But essentially, you just put it in Sport Plus. That's all you have to do. Don't even have to turn off the stability control. Just put your foot hard on the brake. It'll say hold there, and then floor the accelerator. You have to wait for the revs to settle at 6,500, and it'll bounce off there. Holy shit. I haven't done the launch control in this car in a long time, and I've forgotten how good it is. Woo! See, I would like to see Matt Moran do that same, or do the launch control properly, and then let's see his reaction there. But for a rear-wheel drive car, the Cayman will shock you into thinking this is an all-wheel drive car at times. And honestly, the engine sounded good there, and even when the PDK starts, you know, downshifting because you hit the brakes, this car sounds good from certain times, but then there are times when it's in normal mode, you catch the engine sleeping, it has a little bit of turbo lag, and then you miss the sing of the flat 4. Of the flat 6. This flat 4 has a very guttural sound to it. It's a little raspy. I mean, but that's the way a Boxer 4-cylinder is. It's very raspy. It's a little Subaru-ish. Now, if you rev the engine past $5,000, it doesn't sound like a Subaru, but the problem is I don't get a chance to do that very often because if you're revving it past $5,000, you're breaking the law. And honestly, I haven't gotten any speeding tickets in this car. I'm gonna try to keep it that way. So that's the thing about, this car is it has plenty of torque down low, but you will find the engine sleeping at times. And especially if you have it in its eco mode, you really want to leave it in its Sport Plus most of the time because the engine doesn't sound good at the lower revs. Now the thing about this car, if you don't use the launch control, it can feel a little bit sluggish at times. Now I'll floor it here from a stop without using the launch control. And again, you'll feel a noticeable difference in it. It does feel a little bit more sluggish when it's not, using the launch control. The launch control is just necessary because you have to get the revs up, you have to get the turbo on boil for this thing to feel very, very quick. Now, when you put the car into let's go into just a regular sport mode, not the Sport Plus. This is a car that if you find your favorite back road in, oh my God, it's euphoria, it's bliss. The steering, while it could use more feedback, a little bit more heft, it is so damn quick, it's so precise. The car has no body lean whatsoever. The engine is just perfectly placed back there, and it just has a very balanced chassis. This is a car that you could really learn the limits of easily, and it'll just dance. It's a really great dance partner. You have excellent visibility, unlike the Toyota Supra, which felt like you were looking out of a cave. Same thing with the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Camaro, the Dodge Challenger. You sit in this Cayman, you can see out of it extremely well, and that's one of the reasons why you bought a Porsche. Oh my God. And listen to the way this thing rev matches. It's just so fast. Oh my God, the paddles. I use the paddles all the time in this car just to listen to the exhaust. I mean, look at that. Let me go into first there. 7,200 RPM Redline, and it sounds good. There, I don't mind the fact that it's a flat four. Whew. But there are times where I could use another 2 cylinders. I want that sing, that characteristic wail, and that's why Porsche obviously decided to go with the GT4. The GT4 is going to be on sale, or you can actually put a deposit for it now and take delivery of it in spring of 2020, and that's going to have a 4-liter flat 6, 8,000 RPM Redline, naturally aspirated, 414 horsepower and 309 foot-pounds of torque. That's actually less torque than this particular one with PDK. This is 317, but God. Now, fuel economy with this car, it actually is EPA rated to get lower than the old flat 6. I've been averaging around 22 miles to the gallon in mostly city driving. On the highway, I actually can get up to 34 miles to the gallon. I actually was able to get 34, which is pretty good in a vehicle like this. I wanted it to get over 30, and it'll easily do that. If you guys have a lighter foot than I do, you should be able to do even better versus the 34 that I got. But it does get good gas mileage in the real world. The back stepped out there slightly, but it's very easy to catch. It's very predictable. Oh my God. Oh, what a joy. This car still puts a huge smile on my face. And I do regret that I don't get to drive it very often, but I'm traveling all the time to bring you guys all the newest cars. That's the thing about working in this industry. It's tough to just get focused on one car because there's always something new that's coming out. Porsche still knows how to make an incredible sports car. The Cayman is still very much an incredible, serious sports car, way more serious than the Miata, but there are times where I wish it was a little bit more, of a jokester, a little bit more happy-go-lucky. And that's kind of where, there are times where I think that the Miata that I used to have, was a more fun vehicle because I could drive it at lower speeds. Like right now, I'll put it into its normal setting and I'm stuck behind this slow Corolla over here on this back road, and it just sucks. This is the car normal right now. I've got to go very slow and get stuck. This is basically welcome to my life of having to be stuck behind a slow-moving car on a curvy back road in a sports car. But this is where I get bored driving this car. You get stuck behind a slow Corolla like this, and you're just kind of like falling asleep. Now, granted, it's easy to go into sport mode and just, start driving this thing hard, but if you don't drive it hard, it feels boring, and that's really where there's a fine line. That's the reason why Miatas are so much fun, because they're fun to drive slow. This, on the other hand, it's approaching that. If you've got somebody slow in front of you, you are feeling a little bit annoyed, and you just feel like, the car is being held back, which is never a good feeling when you're driving a sports car. But other than that, super sublime to drive. easy to live with day in and day out, gets surprisingly good gas mileage. The 4-cylinder is controversial, but once you get used to it, it's good. But let me talk about my final points with the Cayman and go over some of the reasons why I am deciding to get rid of it. So at the end of the day, the Cayman definitely still puts a huge smile on my face. The rare opportunities that I do actually drive the car, it's very fun to drive. And honestly, that's the most important aspect when you're choosing a sports car. People get too caught up in the numbers with like a 707 horsepower Hellcat, the 760 horsepower GT500. Even though the Cayman has half the power of those muscle cars, I very much would rather drive this on a daily basis because it's got more manageable power. It's not so in your face. The police aren't constantly looking at you versus something like a muscle car. Now, with that being said, the Cayman is definitely not perfect. The flat 4-cylinder engine has been such a controversy that I do think that a flat 6 is necessary in a Porsche, which is why Porsche has introduced the GT4 with its 4-liter flat 6 with 414 horsepower. I also think that a manual transmission is a must in a Porsche. As good as the PEK is in this car, I honestly miss driving stick, and I have a Golf R this week that I'm testing, and I really enjoy driving that car with a manual transmission. The manual is just a much because with a Porsche, it's all about the visceral mechanical feel, and this car kind of feels like an in-between where they're trying to be old school, but they're also trying to go into the new school route, and it just feels a little bit awkward at times. So if you guys are a Porsche purist, I highly recommend going for the manual transmission and getting a flat 6. Now, the other thing I also regret, I really miss being able to put the top down. On a beautiful day like this, it's one of the reasons why I've decided not to keep this car, is because I want to put the top down. Porsche does not offer a sunroof on this car. You have to go to a 911 to get a sunroof, or you can get the Targa, which also is a very nice option, way more expensive. I didn't particularly like the way the Boxster looks. I like the lines of the Cayman, but it's just a little bit too serious, whereas I think a car like this, I don't really race all that often. It's something that I enjoy doing, not a hobby that I enjoy always doing all the time because it's an expensive and relatively dangerous hobby. Really, I just prefer taking a sports car out on a beautiful day, going on your favorite back roads. That's kind of my idea of driving a sports car on the weekends, having fun with it, as opposed to always taking it to the track, because as you guys know, track driving, very hard on the suspension, hard on the brakes, hard on the transmission, just hard on the car in general, whereas I like to take care of my cars and be a little bit more gentle with them. You have a daily driver for that reason, and that's exactly why I'm keeping the Model 3, because that car is a much more interesting daily driver. It constantly feels new. I don't fear for that car getting damaged like I do with a Porsche. And owning a Porsche, I have to say, even though this car in general flies under the radar a little bit, people will see that you drive a Porsche, you kind of get either a good stare or a bad stare. It's not something that, if you guys don't like drawing attention to yourself, don't buy a car like this. Really buy something else that flies under the radar a little bit more, but it's really going to come down to your specific taste. Now, the pricing of this car, mine was $95,000, which is literally $40,000 more expensive than the new Supra that I drove. Now, granted, the Supra is a BMW, some people have criticized it for being lazy, but I actually liked the engine in the Supra more, and that's a problem because this is a Porsche. I should like the engine in this more, but instead I like the 6-cylinder engine from BMW in the Supra, so I'll be curious to drive the new Z4. I'll be curious to drive a Cayman GT4 and a Boxster Spider with the flat 6-cylinder engine. I think Porsche has overpriced the Cayman when you guys get it at the high end like this, but if you guys can control your options and get the baser end at $65,000, I think it's a good price, and I would easily get this over a Chevrolet Corvette. But just be sure, if you guys are looking to buy a Porsche, order it in the exact spec that you want. Even though the dealer gave me a really great deal on this car at $1,300 a month, I constantly regretted the fact that I don't have a convertible, I don't have a manual transmission, I don't have a red interior to go with the white exterior color. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my long-term update and channel updates of the channel. I know some of you are probably shocked to find out that I'm getting rid of the long-term Cayman, but feel free to leave in the comments below and tell me what car you think I should replace this with. I'll probably wait until next year to get another car. There's always new cars rolling out. I don't want to rush into something. I'm definitely not going to get the new Supra because I miss having a convertible aspect, so definitely not the new Supra. Maybe a Z4, I don't know if they do an M version of that car, maybe. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please be sure to like us on Facebook, subscribe to the channel for all the latest videos, and of course follow us on Instagram to see all the newest cars that we're testing. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video.